Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moans. And this one, quite a delicate subject, the gender recognition bill and the sham that followed from the SNP Scottish Government. Now, before I touch this subject, I know exactly what will happen here, because it's how society works just now. I will get bombarded, lambasted for even making this video. And there'll be people who tell you that I'm right-wing, I'm homophobic, whatever phobia it is you would give somebody the name if they were phobic against transgender phobic. I don't know, is that even a word yet? And all these things will happen by people that will not even listen to a single word I say. They'll see the video go out, they'll see it on social media, they'll see the name given to the video, and I'll be Hitler. Because that's what happens. To give it some balance, just explain a couple of things to those people that want to do that before I get onto the subject, and I hope that they actually listen to maybe the first minute of the video without deciding what narrative to use against me. In my life, my adult life, I've came across 2 trans people. And that doesn't sound like a lot of people, but it's probably more than most. And I say come across, I've probably come across a lot more trans people, because I don't stop everybody that I talk to and ask them if they're transgender. I just get on with it. But in 2 instances, one probably about 25 years ago and one within the last decade. The first one, it was a customer of mine. Worked for family business at the time, and with this customer who was, quite a regular customer, and got to know this person, and the topic would come up, not instigated by me, but the topic came up, so it's spent a bit of time talking to that person about life as a transgender person. And then later on in my life, when I started getting a wee bit of responsible jobs, and I was actually interviewing someone for a role in a company I worked for at the time, and it came up in the interview process that this person, this candidate for the job, was transgender. And I like to talk to people about different topics, things that I don't know and interest me. And I'm not saying transgenderism interests me, but I just find it fascinating how somebody can be born in the wrong body, basically. So and as far as being any sort of phobic at all, I'd like to just point out that the candidate for the job got the job, because I thought they were adequate for the job and could do the job regardless of whether they were a man wanting to be a woman or a woman wanting to be a man. I looked at the facts in front of me and made the decision that they were a successful candidate for the role they'd applied for. And that maybe gives me a wee bit of understanding. I'm not suggesting I'm any expert in the field, but potentially a slightly higher than none understanding of the topic. And I had a lot of empathy for these 2 people. My own opinion on transgender is, if you look back at history, probably as far back as history records, there's been evidence of transgender people throughout the history of the world. So it is a thing, it's not a figment of imagination. And I think it must be, and going by the experience I've had with 2 transgender people I know, or I knew, it must be a pretty shitty thing to deal with, quite tough to deal with. How do where do you see yourself in society, within your family, and all these things, and yeah, pretty tough. So I think that there is a genuine issue there. There is a medical issue called gender dysphoria, which is a real thing, and it's been a real thing for probably as long as the history of mankind. Probably the wrong choice of words on the subject, but you know what I'm saying. So it is a thing, and it, for anybody that has got gender dysphoria, then it, probably quite a tough thing to deal with mentally. I understand that. So anyway, going on to this gender recognition bill that the SNP tried to make law. Currently, UK legislation for a man to become a woman or a woman to become a man, you need to do a few things. You need to be over 18. You need to provide 2 medical letters, proof from medical professionals. One, proving you're actually been diagnosed with gender dysphoria. And the other one, to describe and explain the medical processes you wish or want to have happen, and you have to have lived in that sex that you want to be regarded as for 2 years. Now, I don't think, and this isn't a new thing. Back 25 years ago when I had my first conversations with a transgender person, that was the way that this person was living in the opposite sex. They dressed that way, they looked that way. To be fair, up until you could see some very obvious factors when they were up close. From 20 feet away, you would think this person was actually their gender. You wouldn't have thought any different. You wouldn't think that's a man dressed a woman or a woman dressed a man. And that person had to explain to me that it was a 2-year process before any medical procedures could happen, and had to live in this gender. And you have to change your name, get your driving licences, these sort of things done. And, that was the law then, and this person seemed quite happy to deal with it in that way. I'd imagine it would be quite an emotional thing to do, but I don't think altering the laws would have made it any more or any less emotional and a sort of tough mental process for this person. So that's the law as it stands just now. So the SNP, in their wisdom, they wanted to change that. And they wanted to change 3 aspects of it. The first thing was they wanted to change the age. They wanted to bring the age down from 18 to 16. It's quite a big thing when you realise there's a lot of things in this world you're not allowed to do because for example, the SNP don't want you to be recognised as an adult if you commit a crime until you're in your 20s, because they feel you're too immature. And the whole judicial system, and specifically when it comes to sentencing, they want people in their early 20s to be dealt with more lenient than as they turn adults. But they wanted to drop the age for changing your gender to 16, which is a bit bizarre. Very contradictory. So that was the first thing, that was the biggest thing. The second thing, they wanted to do away with any medical opinion whatsoever. So you didn't need to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria to change your gender, which seems a bit bizarre. And the last thing they wanted to do was reduce the term of time that you lived in the gender you wanted to be recognised as to 3 months, with one caveat, come to that in a second. So instead of living for 2 years as currently, change your passport, change your driving licence, live as a female if you're a man, want to transition into being a woman, for example, you would need to do that. They wanted that down to 3 months. So tell everybody you're a woman for 3 months, change your driving licence, don't be medically diagnosed with anything, don't have to prove that you actually want to change your gender physically in any way, and you can do all that from 16 years of age. And if you're a boy you want to be a girl, that's done. 3 months. There was one caveat to that. If you were 16 or 17, you actually had to live for 6 months in your chosen gender. So that's what they wanted to do, and I was quite shocked and surprised that they actually got that through the Scottish Parliament. I thought people, and I don't have a great faith in the mental capacity of people in the Scottish Parliament, but even that one surprised me, I must admit. So they got the bill passed, and that was in January this year. Sorry, was it December? December, January, about a year ago. And then the British government done something they had never done in the whole 20 odd years of devolution. They invoked a Section 35 order, which is basically Westminster's power to stop anything becoming law in Scotland that they deem as a reserved power, which basically means they're saying Scotland doesn't have the right to do that. And they used common sense and logic to explain that, you know, having two different laws in the UK for this thing, when it was, you know, security issues on the whole, the issues that could evolve with changing the laws and having two different laws in the UK. So they invoked this Section 35, which was their duty. And then around about February, March, the Scottish Government declared that they were getting a judicial review of that to say that shouldn't be allowed. The UK Government should never be allowed to, you know, involve themselves in the Scottish Parliament. Now, if that was the case, then you wouldn't have any reserve power. Scotland could just do what they want, basically. So Section 35 is there for a reason, and that is to make sure the Scottish Government only deals in things that the Scottish Government's legally allowed to deal with. So anyway, the Scottish Government decided to stand against this, and the court ended up hearing this in the Court of Sessions in Edinburgh. And lo and behold, the judges in the Court of Session in Edinburgh decided that the British government were correct. Well, the bill's there, it's, you know, the Scotland Act's dead simple. It tells you quite clearly what Scottish government can and can't do. So how anybody thought this was a good idea to claim against the judgment of the British government remains to be seen. And it seems to me it's just another one of these Scottish Government knowing fine well that they're not going to get something passed, and it's just a way of then pointing and saying, oh, Westminster are bad people, they want to ignore the democratic right of Scottish people. That's what they do. So a couple of things happened, and people were questioning how much is this costing to take us to a court that everybody knew that, you know, how the judge was going to view it. It wasn't I don't even think it was a 70-30 split. It was probably a 99.9% to 0.1% split in how this case was ever going to go. But they done it anyway. And anyway, at one point Humza was asked how much this cost. Oh, I'm not telling you. I'll tell you once the process is over. So there's a lot of cost involved. And the other thing I was trying to figure out was how many people does this actually affect? All this time, effort, cost. You know, if it was something that was going to affect the lives of 50% of the population, then I would kind of get it. And I'm not suggesting for any minute, because transgender people are obviously in the minority, a big, massive majority of people are not transgender. You know, what's a figure of people is it we're talking about here? And how is it actually going to affect their life? Because I can't think of, you know, in my as I say, my own experiences. I only discussed this with one of the transgender people I've had any dealings with in my life, and they felt it was all right. They weren't like having a big problem with living as 2 years and the sex, the gender they wanted to be recognised as. It was a big problem to them. They were probably going through a lot of emotional stress at the time anyway. And the fact, the 2 years, I don't see that adding to the stress, and I don't see how reducing to 3 years, to 3 months would reduce the stress. So I was trying to find out and research how much of the population does this actually affect, and quite difficult to get an exact number. But looking at stuff, you know, surveys done with general practitioners and the information that is available, it's probably between 100 to 200 people a year in Scotland any given year are getting treated for gender dysphoria. It's quite a low number, and I would like to know how many of these people's lives get made easier by reducing the age, reducing the term that they have to live in the gender they want to be accepted as. I really don't know what the benefits are. And I'm not trying to be blasé, it must be a horrific thing. If you are a genuine gender dysphoria patient, or, you know, diagnosed with that pretty mind-bending stuff. Do you know what I mean? So I don't see how, you know, whether it's 3 months or 2 years, or you need a letter, you don't need a letter. I think it's totally bizarre that you would allow somebody to change their sex legally without any proof that they suffer from gender dysphoria. If anybody wants to change their sex, it doesn't suffer from gender dysphoria. That's pretty odd. So getting a diagnosis if you suffer from gender dysphoria should be a standard, really. And that gets me on to my next point. When I was trying to find out the numbers involved, one statistic blew my head. The ratio of men wanting to be women and women trying to transgender to men is 41. 41. Now, if you consider that gender dysphoria is the biological, try to watch my words here so I don't get abuse flung at me, but if basically you're born in the wrong body, that's what it boils down to, and that was just something that happened in nature, you would kind of think the split would be 50-50. That leads me to consider, why is it there's such a massive difference in the amount of people that are apparently born in the wrong body that are men that want to become women? Why is it a 41 ratio? Surely, if this was purely gender dysphoria, you would imagine that biology would get it wrong in an equal split, or nearer equal than 41. Even if it was 2-to-1 ratio, I probably wouldn't raise my eyebrows. A 41 ratio of people who are wanting to be transgender are men wanting to become women. That doesn't sit with me. Doesn't sit with me. That then just screams of why is it so disparate? I mean, if it was just a quirk of nature, something that happened, that wouldn't happen that way. Wouldn't happen that way. Impossible. So, but why? And that just then brings us to the Isla Bison thing, that if I wanted to, I could, if the SNP had got their way, got their wishes, I could just change my passport, change my driving licence, 3 months later, go online. Oh, and they don't even charge, the SNP weren't even going to charge for the British government, to be fair, I think used to charge £140 to do the paperwork. They've reduced that to a fiver. The Scottish Parliament were just not going to charge anything. So there'd be no cost to me whatsoever. I don't know how much it cost me to change my passport or driving licence, I don't know. Minimum. Do that. No diagnosis, no potential surgery to take place in the future, because you don't need that letter anymore if the Scottish National Party had their way. And then legally be a woman. I would then be protected by more laws than I would ever need to just be a woman. And if you want to tell me otherwise, you'd be breaking the law. So if I went for a job in a women's specific role, and I'm trying to think of one, let's say I wanted to get a job in a sports centre, swimming baths, and I wanted to work in the female changing rooms, couldn't stop me. If I wanted to go into a public toilet and walk through the ladies' door, and I don't think there's any laws against this, it's a bit weird, nobody could stop me. Wanted to take part in women's sport, try tell me, I've got a letter here saying I'm a woman. Yeah, it could be, where did it stop? Could I be a woman under 17 and play for Scotland? At football? I don't know. But this is how bizarre the Scottish National Party are. If they had their way, by the summer, I could be getting referred to as Miss Houston, and you couldn't stop me. If I go to jail, we've already seen the examples of that. Need to put me in a women's jail, because you've let me identify as a woman. You've legally given me the same legal rights as a woman. What would you do? It's absolute madness, these people. And I do have the utmost sympathy for people who are genuinely got gender dysphoria. I've got a lot of empathy for the people that I've met through the travels in my life and conversed with. I've probably met a lot more transgender people. I just haven't recognised that I'm not that bothered. And, I don't, as I say, the 2 people that I've had discussions with that were transgender, and one of them on numerous occasions, it didn't happen because I brought it up. It just came up, and I learnt a lot from it. Actually quite interesting discussions, to be honest with you. Anyway, that's where we are. And the Scottish National Party are probably going to, at some point today, if they've not done it before this video goes out, make a decision that they're not going to appeal these findings. So basically the last year of bedlam on social media, newspapers, even out in the streets with people dancing about with flags, didn't need to happen because they were wrong. They didn't have the power to act this bill once it got passed. So what was the point in even doing it in the first place? It is just more theatrical, virtual signalling by this decrepit party that actually want to govern Scotland, and they are making an absolute arse of it. How much cost, how much grief, how much harm have they actually done to the transgender community through this last 12 months? Because it's been a focal point, and I think most people in society are like, well, fine, crack on. If you've been born in the wrong body and you want to do something about it, fill your boots. I think that's the general consensus opinion, but not for the last year. For the last year, well, it's been a focal point. And, I've seen newspaper reports where people are even transgender saying it's a lot of nonsense. That, they're quite happy to just go on with their life and not have the spotlight put on them, and it's all been for nothing. If you actually knew how the Constitution worked, you would have known that a year ago, that this was never going to work. But the SNP either want to ignore that, if they knew it in the first place. If they did know about it, then it's just been a sham. An absolute sham. Another thing to polarise opinions in the country about. Because that's what they're good at. That's how they govern. Split the country. Everybody's got to take a stance. You've got to say this is a good thing or this is not a good thing. On every topic, independence, gender recognition, yesterday's raising the taxes, all these, you've just got to be one pole on opposite ends. And this just happened to be another one. So I actually think that they have abused the transgender people of Scotland and used them for their own political benefit by trying to get another one-upmanship on Westminster. All you've done is create another, for 12 months, another thing to argue about with Westminster and try and suggest that Westminster's wrong. And you've used and abused the transgender population for your own benefit. That, my friends, is disgusting. But I'll be the bigot. Anyway, if you got this far in the video, thank you. Give me a wee thumbs up if you liked it. If you want to see more videos, click on the subscribe button and hit the notifications, please. But most of all, have a great day. Thank you.